Hey guys, what's up? My beautiful peeps, welcome back to a brand new episode of Gifted Since 92, giving you guys the latest and exclusive content on new music, entertainment news, and inspirational quotes by me, Queen's back. Alright, I decided to make this new video and you know, it's very important. And I feel like since there's different topics of this discussion, what is a superstar. But really, honestly, superstars are made, not born. So grab your popcorn, pull up your chairs, because your girl's going to tell it how I feel. This climate of music is not this, like, I know people say, well, there are no superstars in music. There's no talent in music. And we all know about how, things go. But when I notice that, to me, superstars are made. The reason why they're made, I don't care. It takes a certain number of years for a trajectory of superstars in music to really blossom and be the next in line for themselves. Just like the great artists of their generation. It's the same thing. It took years, hard work, perseverance, making quality music. And listen, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. No. The music right now, like Gen Z, they have superstars. But I feel way before that, a couple years ago, I would say about maybe 10 years ago, 2013, when the climate was starting with the rather music started to get more, like I said, R&B, pop, hip hop, soul, dance music was still relevant. Okay, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't relevant, but I do notice that when that mumble rap and trap rap music took over, it dominated so heavily. And I feel that the superstars of the Gen Z, they do have it. It's just a lot of factors where people say, okay, good example, so and so has all the talent, the work ethic, but keeps being compared to another artist or more of them, which I'm sick and tired of this narrative. Because I observe things, I don't say as much, and then even do research. I'm like, wow, there's not going to be another so and so for that generation previous before, because no, that's disrespectful, and not to come at like the newer artists, but they got to be the next in line for themselves. It's like the cycle, you know. How are you going to compare? It's like comparing apples to oranges. They got two different styles, two different tastes. But I also feel there are a lot of this really condescending backhand support. That's another thing. Because I've seen and observed how even with people they say, well, it's so much of this image nowadays. The music has to come first. And I definitely feel that musicians right now and in the future focus on the music. Also, the poor marketing, the poor teams, the poor strategy. You would think that, especially with quality talent and music, you have to have quality management. There's no such thing as perfect management. You have to have quality management. And without quality management, you can have the talent, you have the work ethic, creativity. But if the musician has poor management, it's going to be put in a limbo all the time. Or musically, with what I was saying about the demographic of like the new music with this generation, like how when musicians they want to do something unique and different with their music. I mean, their music is still catered to, the mainstream world. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, these musicians just have to find and stay true to their artistry. And really, which is really quite sad because I noticed that even like people, they make a lot of commentary about like different things that marketing, that musicians, they really have it all, but they got the wrong people around them. Like, and I even noticed, and like I said, I'm not going to name drop any names because I actually really find it very amazing that there are talented musicians. Talent still exists. There would never be like this notion of, oh, talent doesn't exist. But superstars are made. Superstar to me is like being like the, you know, like under the radar, being like, you've been putting in that work and creativity, and all the oversaturation of the music, of the garbage music, which I feel like this climate of music right now is going to weed out. Believe me, it's going to weed out, because I see how the artistry of certain musicians, they've been putting in that work for years. Sometimes they get overlooked because of the oversaturation of music, trash music, and then, like I said, even artists that are like overrated. I feel like also toxic fans and stands, they make it way, way, way worse. And anybody that watches this video, you have the right to have the red carpet, but I feel like I've been beyond, I've been over, a lot of the drama, a lot of the BS, because really, I feel like there's something called just making sure you have a strategy and staying true to yourself, and then executing and making sure, like, just find your niche and take the ball and run with it. I also feel like, even with the climate of social media, like, fans dictate who's, the next blah blah blah, and who's going to be more popular. First of all, we don't even know. We don't even know that. We don't even know who's going to be more popular. You know why I say that? It's because, just because people like to go by statistics, yeah, I know. Yes, based on the record sales. Yes, based on selling out shows. Yes, based on the connections. Yes, but it does not mean that the rest of the musicians who put in all of that, the same thing, talent, creativity, work ethic, that they're not doing enough. They're lazy. They're not the next blah blah blah. It's always that, and I'm been beyond sick and tired, because it's boring in music. And really, this new, like, wave of music, even the musicians that I had grew up with, and they have went through a lot of things in limbo musically, because there's a lot of this notion where, of course, every musician reaches her or his peak in music. It happens. But to still stay consistent and to stay relevant, it's just redefining and reinventing your sound. That's all there is to it, whether fans like it or not. But most fans, they do enjoy seeing artists evolve. They do enjoy seeing artists, like, okay, grow, tap to different sounds, tap into different demographics. That's what makes a superstar as well. Just because musicians, they did this sound or another sound, that doesn't mean when they do a new sound, oh, they don't have it no more. Oh, also, I've noticed that people tend to want to put them in a box and just be like, well, this musician should just stick to this. Well, okay, fine, I get it. But right now, for how music changes all the time, it has done it before. I have witnessed, and I reflect back, like, years ago, even when I was a teenager, even when I'll tell you this, I was probably about maybe elementary school to a teenager, when music was changing, the sounds of music, even like artists that I grew up with, like, even that I got exposed to, at a young age, even they had, still was relevant music, but new artists came in, emerged, and they found themselves. And then most of the artists of that generation embraced the newer artists. I don't really see it as much nowadays. Mm-mm, I don't. I don't really see it as much. Yeah, I see it, but it's not really genuine. And to me, it's like, okay, cool. If you see how the aesthetic, especially with the brand and the marketing image, a superstar should be she or he, they. What I mean by that, like girl groups, boy groups, girl bands, boy bands, and etc. I feel superstars should just season, create their sound on the underground level, put in that work, stay consistent, stay consistent. And no, I'm not saying just do any old thing. It takes a while for superstars to be made. And you know what they always say? Even the greats, even the legends, the iconic legends, legendary, before we knew who they were putting in their work despite their obstacles. They were told they didn't have the image, they didn't have the package because they're not a superstar because they did not fit in what the music world, the business want, like the typical normal. Whereas I would say, well, like all of that. Like the people would say, you're not this, you're not that, you're not this. But guess what? Regardless, screw that. Because there are plenty of musicians, they may not be in that world the next blah, blah, blah. And even in that world, I tell you what, even the ones getting themselves out there, it's the same thing. They're not the next so and so, but themselves. You see, it's like I personally feel it's very rude and not ethical to even, you know, put these musicians in the box or, and especially the influences. And when I hear certain artists, you can see and hear that they have more influences. It's not just one artist they're inspired by. But I have noticed that there has been times where musicians, it's the same old repetition. That's the only influence. And I also think there's a lot of things that I really would say. This is what I'll say. I feel like that's why most people, they want quality back in music. It's gonna take time. Believe me, I really was listening to what people were saying, even with artist development. Yes, even with the artist development, it works because years down the line, once get the right people, booking stages, concerts, world tours. And I even have said, even with certain artists, regardless of who they are, regardless, I feel like they can, sell out tours. And even if, especially if, like, if they're not huge right away in the mainstream world, if they're not huge right away in the US, they can be really popular overseas. It has happened, because there have been musicians where they have had the mainstream success, but if they were like in a girl band, or a boy band, this is just good examples. But they had that mainstream success. They've had it all. But overseas, but before overseas, when they would want to go on a solo career, sometimes they'd be stuck in a limbo because a solo artist is a lot different from being in a group or a band. Not to put them down because they're both great neck and neck, but a solo artist is also something that I feel that it takes time. We can't rush anything as fans to begin with. I have had noticed that how it was a lot of like Stan Wars for years. And I'm way beyond that. I'm way past beyond that. But I feel like even with like a like how well, what makes a superstar? And I said, well, So I just narrowed down some things and I said, okay, a superstar to me is just breaking the norm, just being rare, just having your own enigma, your own swag, your own, that top tier quality of talent that you can bring to the table with your music. And then sometimes superstars still get overlooked because of certain factors or certain entities, and like in the music business. So also fans that also support consistently. This is another thing I noticed. And I noticed how, like, with people, they have put so much into, like, okay, good example. I sometimes sit back and read, like, different, articles. And I said, okay, cool. I understand A, B, and C. But I feel like superstars got to be very aggressive. They have to be aggressive. They got to be selfish. I personally feel like that's the only way to be a superstar, and just have that, mindfulness of the music business, and just, have that really daredevil. Because really, as I get older, and I said, wow, even the greats and legends, they had no idea they was going to be huge and popular. But the difference is, it wasn't just the popularity, it was the talent, it was the creativity, it was the work ethic, not just being popular. That's just a different thing. They just was like pretty much underestimated, because I feel like, I know people, they do want to see more superstars of their generation and then the next generation and more. But it has gotten so much difficult because the toxic age of social media. And I even have said, man, I'm like, girl, I'm like, I do see some things that can be like, changed throughout the years. I do see some things. It's like, it's really a matter of time until we really hear, new sounds and music. And then I'm sick and tired of this, like, well, because artists, it's not mainstream enough, they're not a superstar. Not necessarily. I mean, they have to have pretty much everything, and then the right marketing. This is what's hindering these musicians now. They have poor marketing. They have poor, and as far as album sales now, I did research like years ago, even regardless. And musicians have sold like 100 something thousand K copies, physical copies, because CDs, people bought CDs a lot. 200K thousand copies, 300K thousand copies, because really people invested in buying CDs. Now it's just investment on social media like the TikTok. And people, they even have said there are musicians, well, artists that have, people have noticed them from TikTok and said, wow, I didn't even see it like that. I was like, oh wow, I didn't see it like that. But they was like, yeah, people's like, yeah, anybody can be a musician nowadays, on TikTok. I'm like, wow, that's something new. But it's like there has to be the formula has to go back to the basis of all of that creates, work ethic. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want to repeat myself, but just going back to the basics. And I noticed that even for superstars in music, just have to really just know that you've been capable. That's another thing. And I even noticed that, even, branding wise, and even, people, like, even for these musicians, I would rather, I just, then this is my personal opinion. People have the right to agree or disagree. I just rather them just stay silent and just let it speak for itself. Drop your album, drop the EP. You got the resources, you got your fans. That all makes a difference. That's it. That's it. It all takes the right timing of execution. And I feel like even with that, there's definitely should be, well, like I said, I even talked about that before. I said, just new music platforms, because really it's really, like, really disastrous that these musicians, they don't have enough of that to promote their music. And that's another issue. But yeah, I feel like superstars, they're gonna have to really be made. They're not born, they're made, they're created, throughout time, the progression. And I had to also talk about how even people want, like, it's like also even with this music. I mean, I like some of the new music here and there, but it is not the same. It's not that nostalgia how I grew up with as a millennial. And I'm not the only millennial that even talked about this. There's plenty of millennials that grew up with music. Oh yeah, we know, especially with, like, certain, like, okay, I like the R&B, soul, hip hop, pop dance albums. way better. I do. Than the, mumble rap albums. I don't mumble mumble rap has caused a lot of that. It's a lot of that like same old. But also for superstars, they just need to just stick to their formula, and I'll be specific. But don't limit yourself to one category, and then get with the right people to push and promote and market the music. Also have independent record labels, because I tell you what, these record labels, they ain't crap. They're not. And I also did a video about rant ratchet music ruin hip hop slash soul and hip hop. So check that out, because I really broke it down the best way I could. But I feel like at the same time, with that whole thing about, okay, superstars can just be more rebellious and just, stay in that lane where regardless they're gonna get there. They just start small, but you have to put in all the work. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You still have to put in all the work. Start small, and then you elevate, and then you get further and further and further and all beyond. Because that way it's going to be like, wow. Um, and it happens, superstars, like I said, I even grew up with the music. I even grew up, okay, like behind the music. That's a popular documentary of musicians that changed the narrative in music. They grew up in an era where you had to have it all, but it was okay to be the next you. You still gonna have that huge mainstream success, and it's not so much about being the next. It's not fair, and it's not. You can't be the next someone else. You have to be the next you. That's why I said, those days are over. Period. And I think that once fans and music critics do see change and elevation and more of that, like, oh wow, yeah, it's gonna get a lot better in music. But yeah, people, have to be more, um they have to really be, like I said, superstars, we got them in this generation. It's not like we never had them before. But I also I tell you a little, I even say something about that. But even as I see myself like witness greatness in music, I'm like, okay, Gibson's 92. I'm probably gonna end it like, I don't know. It's like a new world right now. It's just like a new freaking mindset. And I'm sorry that it may seem like I'm blunt in this video, but not really. I'm not sorry. But I just, I just want to see more superstars, no matter what generation. I want to see more the next in line for themselves. I want to see them really push the boundaries in music. And it's okay no matter who they are, what they are. It's like when your music speaks for itself, that's all it matters. And I feel that people can really get into what these musicians should do and becoming superstars. They should even focus on their music career and put in the work and creativity. But it is okay to study more than one musical influences. We're gonna get influenced by many artists. We're gonna get influenced by many people. That's another thing I noticed. Because especially when I see that daggone freak, like I said, when I see like music critics, we don't always have music critics. That's just how it is. You're not gonna please everybody. You're not. That's just not how it is. But I was like, wow, I'd rather these musicians that just do their own homework, and yeah. So superstars, they just need to get really really aggressive, and also just never give up, and get the right opportunities, and just like I said, So that being said, guys, I just want to get it off my chest. So yeah, I'm just going, like I said, every once in a blue moon, you'll see more videos of me, my little rants, my little thoughts here and there. So that being said, what do you guys think? How do you guys feel? What is a superstar to you guys? What is the makings of a superstar? How are they developed? And do you see or witness any superstars in music right now, currently in music? Let your girl know down below. Let's have this conversation. And as always, stay tuned on the next episode of Get Since 92. Like, share, comment, subscribe down below. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification button. And as always, stay tuned on the next episode, Get Since 92. Dragon Ball Z Nary reference. Peace. Bye bye. Your girl's ezzing out. The Stupid Sands out.